Chapter 1. The Night the Stars Changed. The night the stars shifted over Arcanmoor Academy, the world seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Soft wind brushed past the ancient stone towers, carrying the faint scent of parchment, moon blossoms, and the warm glow of lamp-lit dorm windows. On most nights, the sky above the academy shimmered with its familiar patterns. The compass star in the north, the 7 rings in the east, and the wandering ember known as the sage's lantern drifting lazily across the heavens. But tonight the stars bent, swayed, and rearranged themselves around a single darkened sphere. A quiet, impossible eclipse. And at the center of it all stood a boy on the Academy's rooftop observatory. Elior Graye, wrapped in a soft cloak, curls dancing in the wind, eyes glowing with wonder. Elior had always been curious. Not the noisy, reckless curiosity of children who poked at hornet hives or sneaked into forbidden towers, but the gentle, thoughtful curiosity of someone who sensed meaning in things others overlooked. The sound a staircase made as it sighed at dawn. The way the library windows fogged only on the left side. The dreams that returned to him night after night, whispering fragments of prophecy. He watched the unnatural eclipse with calm awe rather than fear. "It's happening again," Elior whispered, fingers tightening around the railing. Behind him, the soft shuffle of papers signaled the arrival of Lyra Vale, his closest friend, and perhaps the only one who could match his calm intensity. Lyra pushed her glasses up her nose, long black hair tied messily behind her, her arms full of star charts. "It shifted, just like the legends describe," she murmured, stepping beside him. "Elior, the Deathly Hallows constellation shouldn't be visible during this season." Elior nodded quietly. "Unless something awakened it." A beat of silence. The old observatory clock hummed. Lyra glanced sideways at him. "Have you told anyone about the dreams?" "No. Not even Professor Morn?" Elior hesitated, watching the strange dark sphere pulsing in the sky. Something about it tugged at his memory. Soft voices in his sleep, words fading like breath on glass. "I thought they were just dreams," he finally said. "But after this, I'm not sure anymore." Lyra's expression softened, calm but concerned. "Then whatever is coming, we have to face it. Together." Elior smiled faintly. "Together." From the staircase below, a loud, cheerful voice echoed upward. "Oi, you too. Watching the stars without me? That's rude." Corin Dusk emerged into the moonlight with the reckless grin he wore like armor. His hair looked as if he had run through the wind itself, and his travel pack clattered with trinkets he'd borrowed from who knows where. He froze when he saw the sky. "Okay, that's new." Lyra sighed. "Corin, please don't make jokes." "I wasn't going to," Corin muttered, stepping closer. "This is actually kind of terrifying." The 3 of them watched in silence as the dark sphere above the academy pulsed again, this time accompanied by a low, melodic hum. The sound rolled across the night as if someone had run a finger along the rim of the world. Elior's chest tightened. "That sound," he whispered. "I've heard it before." Lyra turned sharply. "In your dreams." He nodded. And then, as if responding to him alone, the dark sphere flared, casting a beam of soft, silvery light toward the Academy's west tower. Straight into Professor Althea Morn's study. Lyra gasped. Corin swore. Elior felt his heart shift like a compass needle snapping into place. Something was calling him. Something ancient. Something patient. The Deathly Hallows had awakened. The corridor to Professor Morn's study felt unusually warm, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Professor Althea Morn, Arcanmoor's most respected mentor, was a motherly presence wrapped in old shawls, always scented of lavender and rain. She taught magical theory and the soul arts, though most students insisted she also taught something softer, hope. Tonight, her door was slightly ajar, glowing with the same silver light they had seen from the observatory. Elior swallowed. Do we knock? Corin shrugged. Or we pretend we didn't see anything and go get pastries? Lyra shot him a glare so sharp he immediately lifted his hands. Right. Okay. Serious moment. I'm calm now. Elior stepped forward and gently pushed open the door. Inside, Professor Morn stood facing the window, her shawl fluttering slightly as if stirred by an unseen breeze. The silver beam from the sky shone directly onto her desk, illuminating an object none of them had ever seen before. A small, triangular artifact, black as starlit obsidian, glowing faintly from within. The Deathly Hallow of Shadows. Professor Morn turned slowly, her expression solemn. Elior, she said softly, it's beginning. A chill ran down his spine. My dreams, he whispered. They weren't dreams, were they? Morn shook her head. No, child. They were memories. Memories of what? Morn stepped closer, her voice low, like a candle fighting against the wind. Of the last time the Deathly Hallows rose. Elior's breath caught. Behind him, Lyra's eyes widened. Corin muttered something that sounded like, fantastic. Love that for us. Professor Morn placed a hand on Elior's shoulder. There is something you must understand, she said. The Deathly Hallows are not the same as the legends you've heard in storybooks. They are not relics of death, but of protection. A shield against a darkness older than our world. Elior frowned. Then why awaken now? Morn's expression turned grave. Because something is coming back, and it seeks to break the Hallows apart. A pause. And you, Elior Graye, were born with a rare gift to sense them. Elior stared at the glowing artifact. For the first time, the dreams made sense. The whispers, the warnings, the feeling of being pulled toward something vast and unseen. He looked up at Morn. What do I need to do? She exhaled slowly. You must find the remaining Hallows before they fall into the wrong hands. Elior's heart beat faster. And if I fail? Morn hesitated. Then the world will lose its last defense against the Shadowborn. The room fell silent. Lyra stepped close to Elior. We're with you. Whatever happens. Corin nodded, though his grin had been replaced with something more serious. Elior looked again at the artifact, feeling it hum gently, like a heartbeat. His heartbeat. I'll find them, he murmured. Professor Morn smiled sadly. I knew you would. Outside, thunder rumbled from a cloudless sky. The Deathly Hallows had chosen their bearer. And Elior Graye's journey had just begun. Chapter 2. The Whispering Library. The next morning, Arcanmoor Academy felt different. Not visibly. Students still rushed between classes, dorm cats still napped atop sun-warmed steps, and Finna Reed still polished his spectacles at the entrance of the Grand Library. But there was a subtle weight in the air. A tension like the hush before a storm. Elior walked through the halls with Lyra and Corin, unable to shake the feeling that something unseen was watching. Not threatening, but waiting. Lyra carried her notebook, scribbling potential theories about the awakened Hallows. Corin, meanwhile, tried, and mostly failed, to appear relaxed. So, Corin said casually, we're searching for ancient relics powerful enough to reshape reality. Nothing too dramatic. Lyra didn't look up. Could you be serious for at least one moment? I'm serious all the time. I just hide it better. Elior smiled faintly. Their banter was comforting, a reminder that not everything was changing. When they reached the Grand Library, Finna Reed looked up from his desk. He was in his 70s, gentle-eyed and silver-haired, with a humor so soft that one almost missed it entirely. Ah, he said warmly, Elior Graye. I had a feeling you'd arrive today. Elior blinked. You did. Finna nodded as though this were perfectly normal. When the stars shift, certain students always wander here. Knowledge does that to people. Lyra stepped forward eagerly. Master Finner, we need information on the Deathly Hallows. Anything rare, old, or forgotten. Finner's wrinkled eyes twinkled. I suspected as much. He gestured for them to follow. The grand library was enormous. Spiraling floors, floating lanterns, staircases woven under arches of ivy. But Finner didn't lead them to any of these familiar sections. Instead, he gently tapped a wooden panel behind his desk. A hidden passage swung open. Corin blinked. Okay, cool. Very cool. Terrifying, but cool. The passage led down a narrow hallway lined with glowing runes. Elior could feel the magic humming softly, as though recognizing him. At the end of the corridor lay a small, circular room, dimly lit and filled with ancient scrolls sealed in glass tubes. Finner approached a pedestal at the center. This, he said, placing a hand on the dusty glass, is the Whisper Archive. Every prophecy ever uttered near Arcanmoor finds its way here, even those spoken in dreams. Elior's breath hitched. Dreams. Finner removed one tube and handed it carefully to Elior. This appeared last night, Finner said. It is addressed to you. Elior stared at the scroll, hands trembling. Lyra stepped closer. Open it. He unsealed the ancient parchment. A whisper, barely audible, curled into the air like faint smoke. 3 hallows guard the living dawn. One of shadow, one of breath, one of wandering flame. When the stars turn dark, the chosen child will wake the sleeping world, and stand where fate once fell. Elior felt his chest tighten. Lyra's voice was awed. This means there are 2 more hallows. Breath and flame. And they're hidden, Corin added, saving us from something big. Finner nodded gravely. The hallows are protectors. But protection implies threat. Elior swallowed. Professor Morn said something wants to break the hallows apart. Finner met his gaze. Yes, the Shadowborn. The air chilled. But they're a myth, Lyra whispered. Finner gave a sad smile. All dark forces are myths until they are not. A faint creaking noise sounded from behind them. Mira Fenlo stood in the doorway. Shy, quiet Mira, her hands clasped nervously at her chest. She blinked when she realized they were looking at her. I didn't mean to listen, she stammered. But I think I know where the Breath Hallow is. Elior's heart raced. How? Lyra asked gently. Mira twisted her fingers together. I've seen it. In visions. Since I was little. The room fell silent. Mira raised her eyes to Elior, her voice barely above a whisper. And it's calling for you. Chapter 3. The Hall of Breath. The journey began at dawn. Mira led the way through the Academy's misty gardens, across an old stone bridge, and toward a place most students avoided. The Hall of Breath, an abandoned wing once used for meditation and healing arts. Its windows were shattered, vines curled around cracked pillars, and an otherworldly stillness clung to the air. This place feels haunted, Corin muttered. It's not haunted, Mira said softly. Just sleeping. When they stepped inside, the air shifted, warm and cool at once, like a sigh brushing past the skin. The hall's long corridor stretched ahead, lined with faded murals depicting souls, wind, and shimmering silhouettes. Lyra ran her fingers along the wall. These markings, they were made to protect something. Mira nodded. The Breath Hallow. It hides in the still chamber. Elior felt a familiar hum beneath his feet, like the Shadow Hallow, but gentler. They walked deeper. The light dimmed. The murals grew more vibrant, almost alive. Elior paused when he reached a painting depicting a child surrounded by swirling air. The child had his eyes. Lyra noticed too. Elior, this is you. Corin frowned. But how? Mira answered quietly. Prophetic murals. They appear when destiny shifts. Elior stepped back uneasily. The hall responded. Wind swept through the corridor, spiraling around him, lifting dust into glowing beams of light. Mira raised her hand, calming the air. It recognizes you, she murmured. You're its bearer. The wind pulled gently toward a large wooden door at the hall's end. The still chamber. Elior approached. When he touched the door, it dissolved into air. The chamber beyond was circular, filled with suspended motes of silver light, like frozen breaths waiting to be exhaled. At its center lay a small sphere of pure, glowing brightness. The breath hallow. Elior stepped forward. The moment he touched it, warmth surged through his body. His lungs felt lighter, his heartbeat steadier. Memories flickered, his childhood, his fears, the dreams. A soft voice whispered, "Child of the living dawn, breathe." And the hallow melted into his chest, becoming part of him. Lyra gasped. "It bonded with you." Corin grinned. "Well, now you glow a little. That's new." Elior looked down at his hands, which shimmered faintly like soft moonlight. But before he could react further, the chamber trembled. A dark crack ripped across the ceiling. A voice, cold as winter smoke, echoed. "Two found. One remains." The Shadowborn had sensed the awakening, and they were coming. Chapter 4. Fire in the Depths. They didn't return to the academy. Professor Morn met them halfway through the gardens, her shawl fluttering like anxious wings. "You felt it too," Elior whispered. She nodded grimly. "The Shadowborn have stirred. We must move quickly." Lyra inhaled sharply. "We know the next artifact, Flame Hallow. But we don't know where." Mira stepped forward. "It's beneath the academy." Morn froze. "The Ember Vaults," she whispered. "But those caverns collapsed centuries ago." "Not all of them," Mira murmured. "I've seen them." Professor Morn studied her for a long moment before nodding firmly. "Then we go." Scene break. The Ember Vaults were reached through a forgotten staircase at the base of the West Tower. It descended into warm, glowing darkness, a labyrinth of red-lit tunnels, each one pulsing like the inside of a sleeping dragon. Corin whistled softly. "Cozy. Try not to touch anything," Morn warned. "The walls are alive with heat." Lyra adjusted her lantern. Alive. Everything in these caverns once breathed flame. The deeper they traveled, the hotter the air became. Elior felt the two hallows inside him humming, one dark, one bright, guiding him forward like twin stars. The tunnels opened into a massive chamber with a pool of molten gold at its center. Floating above the pool was a crystalline shard of red fire. The Flame Hallow. As Elior stepped forward, the molten pool trembled. A shape rose from the lava, tall, shadowed, glowing with emberlight. Corin stumbled back. That's not friendly." The creature spoke in a voice like crackling flame. "The bearer of breath and shadow, you seek the third? Prove your heart is steady." Elior swallowed hard. "What must I do?" "Walk." A narrow stone path emerged across the molten pool. Lyra grabbed Elior's arm. "No. This is a test. What if it's a trap?" "It is a test," Morn said gently. "But one meant only for him." Elior breathed deeply, feeling the breath hallow calm his lungs, feeling the shadow hallow steady his steps. Then he walked. Heat licked at his skin. Flames roared beneath him. But Elior focused on the warmth inside him, not the fire below. When he reached the center, the flame hallow descended slowly into his hands. Warm, vibrant, alive. It flared brightly, and then dissolved into his chest, joining the other two. For a moment, the world went silent. Then the cavern shook violently. Shadows streaked through the cracks. A voice hissed. The Hallows are united. The barrier will fall. Morn's eyes widened in horror. They're striking the Academy. Elior turned, heart racing. We have to go. Now. Chapter 5. The Living Dawn. They burst from the Ember Vaults into chaos. The sky above Arcanmoor was dark, completely eclipsed by swirling shadows. Students ran through the courtyards, teachers raised shields of light, and the academy bells tolled in warning. Professor Morn lifted her staff. The Shadowborn are breaking through. The Hallows must be awakened fully. Elior felt the three Hallows inside him swirling, shadow, breath, and flame, like storming currents trying to merge. How do I awaken them? He shouted. Morn placed her hands on his shoulders. You must call them. Trust them. Become them. Elior stared at her, terrified yet determined. Lyra stepped beside him, eyes steady. We believe in you. Corin grinned weakly. If you explode, I'll miss you. Mira whispered. You won't. Elior closed his eyes. He felt the Hallows pulsing. Shadow, calm. Breath, pure. Flame, alive. Then he let go. A burst of light erupted from his chest, soft, golden, radiant. The Hallows intertwined, weaving together like threads of ancient magic. A beam shot upward, piercing the dark sky. The shadows recoiled. But they did not flee. They gathered, forming a tall, monstrous silhouette of pure darkness, eyes like dying stars. The Shadowborn. Its voice rumbled. Child of the living dawn, you cannot hold us forever. Elior lifted his hands, glowing brighter. You're wrong, he whispered. The Hallows answered with a roaring surge of light, flame spiraling with wind, shadow bending into shield, all three harmonizing like a celestial choir. The Shadowborn lunged. Elior released the power. Light tore through the sky, shattering the dark eclipse. The creature dissolved into smoke, shrieking as the Hallows forced it back into the void between worlds. Finally, silence. The sky cleared. Stars returned. And Elior collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. Professor Morn rushed forward, kneeling beside him. You did it, she whispered. Elior shook his head gently. No, we did. Lyra, Corin, and Mira knelt beside him, smiling through tears of relief. But as Elior looked up, he felt an unsettling truth ripple through him. The Hallows were silent. Not gone, but waiting. And somewhere beyond the stars, something ancient stirred. Morn seemed to sense it too. This is not the end, is it? Elior gazed at the sky. No, he murmured. This is the beginning. The Deathly Hallows pulsed quietly in his chest, warm, watchful, patient. The world was safe. For now. But destiny had only just awakened.